Hi, and welcome to the Lilly Roddy Show, coming to you from the Lilly Roddy Studios here in the Montrose in Houston, Texas on YouTube. So glad to have you join me this week as we look over next week's planetary activity. Of course, we've been very busy here with my holiday lecture schedule for December. Next week, December 18th, I'll be covering Houston's chart for 2014. This lecture will be held from 7 p.m. until 8:30 p.m. Cost for the lecture is $25, and it will be held in Lilly's little lecture hall here at LRS Studios. Last night, I covered the USA chart for 2014, and the week before, I covered the Dow Jones chart for 2014. If you missed those lectures and are interested in the CDs of those lectures, please let me know. And if you would just like more information about next week's lecture or purchasing the CDs, you can always reach me at LillyRoddyShow.com, LillyRoddyShow@AOL.com, or find us on our websites, Lilly Roddy Show, at Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest. Well, let's get to looking at what's going on overall. This next week is especially busy with Uranus going direct on the 17th and Venus going stationary retrograde on the 21st. Both of these will have strong impact on our feelings about the holidays. Uranus continues her progress toward freedom and liberation, and of course reinvention. This will have a much stronger impact on the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. These signs will want to act much more independently and ridding themselves of worn-out traditions. And this will be especially strong for y'all next March and April. Venus goes retrograde in Capricorn on the 21st. This is certainly going to make us feel much more nostalgic about our Christmas of the past. It may also slow down our spending on holiday purchases and as we really reconsider really what's important in our lives. This can also be a big stressor for relationships. So if there are problems within your own relationship, this would be a good time to address them. And even if there is nothing wrong, this is still a good time to look at your relationship and add some new goals and some new long-term directions. And of course, you'll find that your partner is very willing to work with you if you ask. Well, let's look at next week's forecast. Sunday, December the 15th, the moon enters and starts the day in multi-talented Gemini at 12:41 a.m. Later in the morning, the moon squares Neptune 6:19 a.m. A great time to stay in bed, avoid drama and energy vampires. Moon trines Mars at 8:22 a.m. We're feeling more active and ready to get on with our day. This is an especially good time to tackle any sort of task, especially one that requires some physical activity. In the afternoon, the moon sextiles Uranus 5:37 p.m. A fun and social afternoon and evening time. Change up your routines and do something spontaneously. Monday, December the 16th, the moon continues in lively and verbose Gemini all day. The moon opposes Mercury at 12:17 p.m. Do you want to talk about it? This is really a good for all sorts of mental work and really a fabulous day for diversions and entertainment. And this is our only lunar aspect of the day. The early evenings may be sluggish. As we get to the end of the evening, our energies will begin to pick up with the building of the new moon in Gemini tomorrow morning. Nevertheless, this is still a good evening to be with friends or family. Tuesday, December the 17th. Moon starts the day in smooth-talking Gemini. Early in the morning, the moon opposes the sun at 3:28 a.m. Full moon in Gemini. If you're up late, This can keep our brains busy and not let us sleep so well, or it will provide you with a very vivid dream night. The moon goes void, of course, after 3:28 a.m. And that'll be until 12:17 p.m. in the afternoon when the moon enters Cancer. Now, later in the morning, Uranus goes stationary direct at 11:39 a.m. Uranus, planet of freedom, invention, and spontaneous action, once again stirs up the call for freedom and equality. Uranus is attempting to eliminate the repressive aspects of our society. We will see more of this 2014 as we get into 2014. Later, the moon enters emotionally intensive Cancer at 12:17 p.m. right after Uranus goes direct. And as it enters Cancer, of course, the moon will no longer be void, of course. The moon trines Neptune in the early evening, 6:08 p.m., and this should provide for a nice, calm, and peaceful early evening. Our emotions, and this would be a great time really for a yoga class or some time for meditation. Later, in the evening, moon squares Mars, quite a different aspect. Our emotions are stirred up, making us defensive. Now, this would be a good time for a martial arts class. Otherwise, clean out your pantry, get those pot lids in order. This aspect may keep you up later than usual. Wednesday, December the 18th, the moon continues in emotionally expressive Cancer. Couldn't get my notes up there. The moon makes two aspects today. First with Uranus in the morning, and then later with Pluto in the morning. And this means this morning could be rocky to explosive. Keep your head even if others don't. Moon squares Uranus at 5:32 a.m. Anything that limits you or holds you back will make you very impatient, and you'll want to break out of whatever has a hold on you. A little bit later in the day, the moon opposes Pluto at 9:58 a.m. Very short amount of time. With this aspect, we're ridding ourselves of unwanted ideas, people, relationships, jobs, etc. I refer to this as this is when the fecal matter hits the ventilation system. Internally, we're dealing with our fears from our childhood that keep us locked into our safe but life-sucking jobs. It's time to break from the old mold and the old model. Get rid of that old mold. Otherwise, we may not be focused for mundane tasks. The evening time on Wednesday is much less tense. Thursday, December the 19th, the moon continues in touchy-feely, empathetic Cancer all day. And as a Cancer, I do know that's true. The moon conjuncts Jupiter 12:02 a.m. right after midnight. This may keep us up from the night before. It's a great time to indulge yourself emotionally. If you have friends in different countries, this is the time to give them a call. Moon trines Saturn 2:49 a.m. If you're awake, work on your bucket list. Now we'll get to an aspect when we might be awake. The moon opposes Venus at 10:37 p.m. It's a very nice aspect for business or personal. A wonderful evening for dinner and a movie with someone special. The moon does go void, of course, after 10:37 p.m. on Thursday evening. On Friday, December the 20th, the moon is void as the day begins, but quickly enters Leo, the lion-hearted, at 12:48 a.m. right after midnight. Moon sextiles Mars, 1:53 p.m. Great energy for a business presentation, meeting with potential new clients, or just sharing your joy with those around you. Later in the afternoon, moon trines Uranus at 6:11 p.m. Of course, that'll be this evening. You'll only want to do what you want to do. And as long as you find it fun and interesting, you're involved in whatever activities that are going on. If you don't, you're going to be the heck out of there. It's a great evening for meeting new people or attending community activities or social functions. And finally, for Saturday, December the 21st, the moon continues in personally focused Leo all day. The sun enters Capricorn 11:11 a.m. on Saturday. This is when the winter solstice begins. This is our natural time to pull inward and prepare for the winter weather. A great time for canning, enjoying the last days of the fall harvest, and looking inward to find our sense of security. Venus goes stationary retrograde today, 3:53 p.m. Now, Venus goes retrograde about every 2 years. During this part of the Venus cycle, we're turning our thoughts inward and reevaluating what's really important to us. The Venus retrograde will certainly put bad relationships on the chopping block, but all relationships will go through some sort of review and renew, personal or business. This time will make people a bit hesitant about spending money on things they're not sure of. Do your research before you invest. The moon squares Saturn 4 p.m. on Saturday. Our mood may be very low at this time. Don't let your negative thoughts take a hold of you. Be your own boss and use that energy to deal with your fears that hold you back from moving forward. I need to shake my finger because I'm speaking like Saturn. So don't let your fears hold you back. That's one of the things that Saturn does and puts a lot of pressure on us. We just have a little bit of time left here on the show. I wanted to make a few comments about our president's chart, particularly since he's been traveling overseas. President Obama has his moon at 3 degrees Gemini. I am using his President Obama's Hawaii birth time and chart, if you are wondering which one I use. The moon's in Gemini at 3 degrees Gemini. This whole last year, and particularly right now, Neptune is squaring that moon in Gemini. And this is going to make him appear to be weaker, not as strong. It will certainly show up a lot of inadequacies in his life. We just had a news report. I mean, could this be more moon in Gemini? We just had a news report where the gentleman who was doing the sign language behind President Obama was making up stuff. He has a very thin excuse, the interpreter, and yet here was a person who was right next to our president, who apparently passed through all kinds of security. So who knows what that might be? But I'm glad that nothing has happened to him. This moon, Neptune squaring his moon, if you have that, that's frequently a time where people want to pull inwards, where they do not want to be in the public. I think that's a very difficult thing for him now. And in the long run, this Neptune is moving to oppose his Pluto. That's really coming up for him this next year. He has Pluto in Virgo. And really, I think that that's just part of the results of the struggle with his health care program, the Affordable Care Act, commonly called Obamacare. Anyway, I just wanted to say I hope we're watching out for him because we don't want anything to happen. So thank you for watching. Please join me next week when we'll be looking at December 22nd through the 28th, the deadly holiday time. This is the Lilly Roddy Show, broadcasting from the Lilly Roddy Studios here in Houston, Texas on YouTube. Goodbye, and remember to keep those stars in your eyes. Good night.